Hello and welcome to our interview with Damon Henry from Boeing Corp.
Yep, so today we're gonna question you with some stuff about 3D printing.
Okay.
Alright, so we know that you can't really answer stuff too well because, Boeing is sort of like that. So just give us a general term to it. So what are the items that you're currently creating with the 3D printing technology? And yes, they don't have to be too specific with it, but
Okay. Yeah, I can talk about the kind of the industry in general. So, there's a lot of different things that they're doing with 3D printing in all the industries right now. You kind of have the MakerBot side where you can just print out like cool little action figures, trinkets, things like that. But they're kind of also using it to advance other technologies. I know for me personally, outside of work, I do a lot with kind of like RC planes and UAVs, and so it's really cool because I have the ability now to 3D print parts for my airplanes that I take out to the field to fly. And there's also, kind of a lot of other companies. I know GE, who makes a lot of the commercial jet engines, they're looking at printing like the fuel nozzles for their engines, things like that. And there's even a company nowadays that will 3D print orthotics, kind of like the Mr. Scholl's inserts for your shoes, and they'll print those out of a printer now for you. So there's a lot of really cool things that they're doing with 3D printing all over the place.
Cool.
alright. So
What do you plan to do in the future with this technology?
Yeah. So again, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of new materials coming out, so they're starting to print with metals. They're also, there's one of the newer materials that are coming out is actually printing with rubber. So that's going to open up a lot of new things where you can print like grips or handles or anything like that. And they're all cheaper. So one of the things that I think would be cool in the future to see is, as a designer and an engineer, having a desktop 3D printer just like you would have a normal printer at your desk.
Yeah.
So that if you design something and you want to see what it looks like, you can just, let me go to the 3D printer and print it out, and I can see what it looks like right there in my hands.
Yeah.
they have those things, so they're cubes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
There's a company called Cube that makes desktop 3D printers. They're getting more and more advanced.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a big kind of push of where it's going in the future with the technology and just new materials. It started off with plastic, but now we're getting into metal and they're printing flexible materials, plastic, things like that. So
Yeah. So you sort of just answered it a little bit. What materials are you using in your 3D printers?
yeah, it's a variety. The most popular 3D material right now, kind of overall, is you have PLA, which is like a thinner plastic. It's pretty cheap. That's what you have in in your CubeX printers or your MakerBot printers. There's also, it's called Ultem, which is like a nylon material, so it's a little bit sturdier. It's like a hard plastic, a little bit more durable. So a lot of your more expensive 3D printers are starting to use that. And some of the newer printers are actually even printing from anything from steel to brass, and even some of the newer printers will print in gold or silver. So you can do like jewelry and stuff.
Yeah. Alright. So how has the 3D printing sort of impacted your business, or sort of to businesses around the place? And is 3D printing a more cost-effective and time-saving method of rapid prototyping?
I think 3D printing is impacting a lot of businesses, especially in aerospace. For instance, like I said with GE, they're printing their fuel nozzle. One of the things with that is right now you're limited to what machining, right? If you want to make a fuel nozzle with a bunch of cuts inside, you can only make that cut if a machine can reach inside of it, right? So with a 3D printer, you can now print it with extra chambers and things like that. So everything's becoming more efficient. So, for them, the big thing with this nozzle is they're going to save in fuel, right? You're going to get a better fuel burn. And just in general, I've worked on projects personally where leveraging 3D printing saved me a month in build time of having to build something, and, save me tens of thousands of dollars. So it's definitely a cost saving, I think, for all the companies that are starting to use it.
Mm-hmm. So, what type of 3D printers are you using? Like SLA, FDM, SLS, and what company are they from?
There's a variety. I've used like the CubeX printers, like you mentioned, or the MakerBots, which kind of print like the PLA. Kind of the bigger more expensive industry printers that I've seen personally are Fortis. So they make like the $500,000 machines, $250,000 machines, and what those do, they print to better accuracy. So you can get something that's almost as accurate, like plus or minus like the width of a human hair in terms of tolerance. So if you're trying to like fit a part up and you want it to be very, very close to what it would actually be, you can kind of use those machines. So those are the big ones.
Are the 3D printers able to produce objects that have a tremendous amount of strength and durability?
Yeah, they're starting to get to that point. Like I said, the Ultem, which is the nylon, has pretty good strength capabilities compared to most plastics. It's up there. Now that they're starting to print in the metals, a lot of those metals aren't all the way up to the strength capacity, but they're pretty close, good enough. And one of the cool things about 3D printing is because you can control every single layer of the material, you can control what direction it prints, things like that. So if you know you're getting stress in one direction or another, you can actually print it to be set up to react to that. So that is one advantage, where if you just had a block of metal, you're going to machine it how you want, but 3D printing, you can actually set it up knowing beforehand kind of what it's going to see and do.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So how do you tailor the 3D printed products to the consumer's needs? So pretty much like, how do you make one thing and then like so a different thing from depending on the shape or like the size or sort of stuff like that?
I mean, it's not much different from how you tailor any other product. So you always, whenever you're developing a product, especially an engineering product, you have a list of requirements from your customer, right? And you meet with them over and over again. And, even as you're designing, you go back and say, hey, is this what you were thinking about? Are we on the right track? And 3D printing, I mean, even those products are kind of the same thing. The one advantage of 3D printing is it's very quick, right? So,
yeah.
Whereas before there might be a change and it's like, okay, you give me a month and I'll go back and remake this part for you. Now we have the ability to say, hey, give me a day and I can have this new product and you can see what it looks like, and it's not very expensive. So that's kind of cool. And, one of the interesting things with tailoring, it's something I just read about the other day actually, is they needed a wrench on the International Space Station. And it was a very specific wrench. And so they said, let us email you, this new wrench, and you can print it out and you have it, right? So that's a really cool thing with the customers. You can say, here, if you have a printer, I can email you a bunch of different things, or I could even email you an update to a part, right?
Yeah.
And then they could just print it out themselves. So that's kind of a cool thing. And that's going back to, where you see 3D printing going in the future, is really being able to almost like email a product instead of making it, right? And so.
Yeah. So, how difficult is it to actually make the products you're making with the technology of 3D printing?
It's not too bad. It really depends. The cost of the printer is a big factor.
Yeah.
So, going on a CubeX printer, it's pretty easy. I mean, you make the part, put it on a flash drive, and walk over to it, and you can print it out fairly quickly. There's been times where, within 4 hours before lunch for the day, I've designed and printed a part out, and I have it sitting on my desk. But then you get up, if you use like the Fortis machines, kind of the more industry-specific machines, they're a little bit more difficult, they're a little bit more challenging, but they also have a lot more capabilities. So, it might take a day to set it up on the printer, but you're going to get a really, really good part when it comes out. But it's definitely easier than actually manufacturing it, right? Because you don't have to go to a machine shop and use all these different bits and cut it out and find the material. Just kind of all comes right there. And so there's even, something to make it easier now. They just came out with a 3D printing pen. So you hold it, and it extrudes the material out, and you can literally draw a 3D shape right there and print it in front of somebody. So there's even kind of those technologies to make it easier.
Yeah. Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So that's pretty much all the questions we have to you. Thank you so much for coming out to help us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely.
Really
I hope it helped you guys a little bit.
Yeah,
So.
you definitely did.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. I love 3D printing. I've been saving up to get my own 3D printer at home to use as well. I love it. So, do you guys have one at school?
No,
no,
but at our
well,
high school we do.
Yeah, at
have
our high
one.
school.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome.
3D printing.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm jealous. I wish I had them back in the day. That's cool.
So how costly was like, are they these days? Like how much money do they cost?
It depends. If you get like a Cubex, I think they're like $700-800 now, so they're not very expensive. I think MakerBot is even cheaper. You know, maybe like $500. So for like a little desktop, they're not super expensive anymore. It's just when you get to like the really big ones, if you want to print like, you know, the Fortis machines, they have ones that can print a part that's like, you know, 2 feet by 2 feet by 3 feet tall. You can print huge parts in it. Those are pretty expensive machines.
Yeah.
But for your like little stuff here and there, it's not too expensive anymore.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Take
Bye.
care.
All right. Yep.
Bye.
Bye.